On this week's show, the man of the hour is back. Close friend of the show, Patrick, aka Papa Echo, is back. All this more in episode 140 of the Inside Infinity podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to Inside Infinity episode number 140, recorded, what's the date? I always forget that part of the show, July 18th, 2016. So excited about this week's show. It's been a long time, and Patrick, I don't know if you realize this, Pirate, you probably don't even realize this either, but this week marks the 3-year anniversary of the show. Our very first episode was July 21st, 2013, and that's later this week. So I'm so honored to have the two of you on as our kind of 30-year anniversary show. So without further ado, you probably know him as Mr. Papa Echo. Patrick, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Has it really been 3 years?
It's been 3 years. I listened to, if you're curious, I'll tweet it on Taking Back Thursday. Throwback Thursday this week. It was a far different show back then. It's kind of comical. All the things we were speculating
you guys lasted longer than most Fox sitcoms. That's impressive.
That's true. That's true.
It was Will talking to himself.
I was like whispering to a microphone because I was all shy and stuff, and yeah, it's pretty funny. But Patrick, man, so happy to have you on. The last time I think you were on the show, it was you and Tyler. You were recording from Disneyland. You were recording from in the parks, and so yeah, it's been a little while. That was before 2.0, or do you remember?
It was right after 2.0 had launched, I think.
Okay.
Because we were in California helping out with a television spot that they were filming for it. We knew we were gonna do your show that night, but we also realized we were 30 minutes away from Disneyland. So we were like, well, let's go to Disneyland, then we'll find a nice quiet spot, and then we'll talk to Will. Not anticipating we had to cut through LA traffic. So there was this I remember we were trying to get to a quiet spot. Our phone was about to die. The sensational parade came through, cut off our path, and we're like, no. Had to get on the show. I think we did the pre-show. We were like in Main Street or something.
Yeah, I think you were
and then
walking.
we had to cut through. We asked like the churro cart attendant in Tomorrowland, where's the best quiet place with a cell phone charger? And they took us to the Golden Horseshoe. So that was a crazy night.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and then I remember Guillermo was the waiter.
We made a friend. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Guillermo should be on their anniversary, the finale show.
I don't know how many shows you guys have left, but definitely a series finale.
All right, who's gonna be in charge of tracking him down?
I will gladly go to Disneyland and try to find him.
Awesome. Unfortunately, the budget for Inside Infinity is kind of used up, so we won't be able to send you out there, but we would support you wholeheartedly if you do.
Fair enough.
Well, awesome, buddy. I don't want to forget our other friend there. You were just on the show 2 weeks ago. This is like a record. It's like old times.
Twice in a month? Wow.
Pirate Steven, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Always a pleasure being on this show. I love you guys, and it's gonna be a good one. You know what? It's always hard to follow the Thomas Estrada episode, but I think we got good content here, and this is gonna be a classic.
Yeah.
I was telling these guys on the pre-show, it's kind of like every sitcom situation ever, where the parents come into their kids' classroom like for career day, and everyone talks about their job. And then there's the poor guy who has to go after him, and that's me. So glad to be here.
No, not at all, man. Not at all. We have lots of fun stuff to talk about, and I know people are excited to hear about it. So yeah, don't even. You were actually, why don't you tell people because it's all pirate. Pirate. Ironically enough, you're the one who introduced Patrick to us in a way. I mean, we'd seen his toy box stuff, but you kind of in a roundabout way had Patrick on the show without him actually being on the show. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Why don't you remind me?
the blank stare on your face is telling. No, you pretty much interviewed Patrick before you were doing interviews on the forums, I think, and you came on the show and like it read off Patrick's questions because Patrick, actually, why don't you tell a little people about your background, how you came to be a part of the Disney Infinity group, what you did, and just kind of your general who you are.
Yeah. Well, technically, not to be a Scrooge with the details here. My first mention really on the show was when Jason talked through the DuckTales challenge, and he described my first featured level as quaint but boring and not really much to do there. Moving on. So.
Oh, what a jerk! That sounds like him.
I was 75% thrilled I'd gotten a shout out, and like 25% kind of like, oh, kind of had a hurt. But no, I guess I don't even remember what the question was. But yeah, I get to tell my story on, was it the second episode of Inside the Toy Box?
Oh, is that what it was?
I don't remember. I think so. The second episode, the only episode I was featured on, and yet I appeared in like 30% of all Inside the Toy Box shows. So pretty good at that
too. So
technically count as a series regular at that point. But I guess just to kind of catch up, brief Cliff Notes version. I started my Infinity journey in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was a middle school teacher. I was a lifelong Disney fan, lifelong gamer. Saw Infinity kind of appealed to every aspect to me. I loved the creation aspect. I loved the technology of the figures. I loved the nostalgia it brought with the brand. And so I was day one purchase. Started building a couple months after the fact, and after it came out, got featured a couple times, 10, 11 times, I guess to be exact, and got an email from Chad Liddell on the Avalanche team who said they were recruiting from the community. And so 10 days, this was 10 days before I was getting married. This had come up, and then got married on May 10th. And on May 11th, less than 24 hours after our ceremony, my wife drove me to the airport to fly out to Salt Lake City, Utah for the first time.
Wow.
So again, none of this would be possible without her support. She is currently trying to make sure our baby's asleep, so it stays that way.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it's kind of how I got here.
That's a great Cliff Notes version. It's kind of funny because even on your story, I have all these behind the scenes moments of it. And I remember today, like my first, like me and Patrick are like big, like brother, best friends now. And I remember our first conversation was in November of 2013. And it was on Disney Infinity Fans. And he private messaged me and he said, yeah, I went in a GameStop and he actually heard of Disney Infinity Fans. I was like, yeah, I know, we're a pretty big deal. So that was my first introduction to Patrick. And then I congratulated him on his DuckTales, and then he just took off from there. He had like 5 featured toy boxes by that first January. And that's when I was starting I do this show a lot and started getting more into toy box playing. And I asked Patrick, is a fun experience. Would you like to build a toy box? I want to have this good idea for Fantasmic, and we started on that, and it was so funny because I had like the whole land built and the gameplay and all that knocked down, and I wanted his help with some deep.
Oh, Patrick, are you still there?
Do you think I build Maleficent as the dragon? And he would like. During his, he was probably even teaching while he was doing this. He had his iPad, and he would build the dragon, and then just send me pictures during the day. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. We should just do this all the time. So we would just send pictures and chat back and forth about toy boxes. So that's kind of how I got to know Patrick over the few months. And right around the time that Stuart got hired, Crazy by Nick got hired. I remember Will contacted me and said, "Hey, do you know any other toy box artists would be interested in this? Because Chad Liddell is asking." And then I immediately got a few
about that.
Immediate people in my head was Lauren Maigitis and Patrick for this opportunity, and a couple others. And I remember I was coming home from work and I called Patrick, and I'm trying to feel him out to see if would you move for a job? And he's like,
he was so coy about it. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
And you're thinking like, man, this pirate guy is such a creeper.
I remember the exact text he said. He was like, "Wouldn't it be cool if you could get paid for building toy boxes?"
Oh God.
You're like, yeah, I guess so. I mean, that could happen.
That's a nice thought. Yeah.
And then I told him like, yeah, well, give me your information, and I'll send it over to Chad. And we kind of helped recruit Patrick, and also I gave recommendations for Tyler Cole for when he was going with Chad. And Chad came back and forth with me, and I think Will as well, just to get more details. But that was a fun process, huh?
That's awesome. I totally forgot about that.
It was also during that time period, after my wife and I were married, about a week or two after, we went on our honeymoon, and we did the Disney thing. We did a Disney cruise, and then we spent a few days at the parks. And that was the first time I met Steve in person, was on my honeymoon. I look back,
show up places.
Paper, this looks really weird.
Yeah.
And I somehow talked to my wife into it. I'm like, hey, is it cool if we hang out with this dude I met on the internet? It's like, I call him Pirate. He's in my phone as Pirate. That's cool, right? So, but yeah, that was a blast.
And the whole time I'm talking to her, trying to sell her on this thing, because I don't think you had your decision made by the dude, you could be like the wife of somebody that works on video games.
Yeah.
This is a big deal for you, too.
Something she never realized she wanted, right?
That's right.
That's crazy.
It was a good experience.
That's cool. That's really cool. The memory. So I did find. I found not your first appearance. The Disneyland appearance with you and Ty Force was Inside Infinity episode number 62. So over half of our shows ago. It was published October 14th, 2014. That's just crazy to think about. That would have been before. That would have been right after the first summit. Well, kind of right after the first summit. And
I think so.
Shortly after, I think 2.0 launched. So I'm sure it seems like forever ago for me, but I'm sure it seems like forever ago for you even.
I honestly, I had to think back on that one because there's been so many kind of crazy excursions and trips that this job had put me on.
Yeah.
That was one of the fun ones for sure. Because because Tyler and I, we were in, like I said, California for this commercial shoot, and helping out. It was these spots that were on like Disney.com, where like father versus son building contest, or me versus Tyler building contest. But we were doing a day's shooting. I remember this random story, and we saw people walking around the Glendale offices. And they had these awesome, we'd never seen these before, but they were like the blue Infinity shirts. And it said Disney Infinity 2.0 on the front. And on the back, it had the toy box icon. Just the toy box icon. We're like, those are slick. Like, we got to ask for one of those. So I remember we were like going onto the set to shoot this thing. And they were like, oh, you guys didn't bring your Infinity shirts. And of course, we just left them because we were kind of hoping to get these nice ones. So they were like, oh, yeah, we'll hook you up with some. And so they sent someone to get shirts, and we're like, yes, we're going to get these awesome shirts. They come back with these paper-thin white promotional shirts that they made us put on, Like, thank God I had an undershirt because nipples could be seen, I'm pretty sure. They were way too small, and then the kicker was that it said Infinity on the front, and on the back it said it had Tinkerbell, and it said "Bring on the pixie dust" or something. So that completely backfired.
That's amazing. Careful what you
Yeah,
ask for, right?
yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. So all right, so Pirate just kind of mentioned at that point he was trying to sell your wife on the job, and you weren't quite sure. What kind of sold you on it? What made you decide to work on video games for a living?
Um, I mean, I think a lot of it was that it's kind of been the dream to work for Disney. It kind of helped that we were making the decision process aboard the Disney Dream, and then 2 days in the Disney parks. So that really kind of sold it. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those opportunities where that's a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
You're playing for fun at home, and you get called to actually be a part of the game. It's the last Starfighter kind of thing, but
Well, so I mean, I think we all can agree that Disney Infinity is something special. It's done something in the industry that few games, if any, have ever done before. And I remember talking when the announcement first kind of came out that they were making this community team and basically hiring from the community. I just remember being blown away at the time and just recognizing like that was the recognition of how important the community is for the game, and in the fact that they reached into some of the most loyal and diehard fans is just pretty amazing. What are some of your favorite memories from working there? Like what sticks out in your head as some fun times that either we know about or we may have no idea?
ooh, there's I don't even know where to start with that one.
Well, now you can say anything
Um,
you want because they can't fire you or
that is true. Too late for that.
yeah.
But
Oh.
yeah, wah, wah. But no, I think one of the things I was kind of intimidated about, reluctant about, was that I was someone from the community. My experience with game design was that I played this game. So I wasn't sure how people who had spent years in the industry, who uh, had studied hard, worked hard for this, were going to treat someone who just kind of stumbled into it, I guess. But really, just from day one, I remember how incredibly welcoming everyone was, and how receptive people were for opinions.
Wow.
I remember going to lunch the first day, and it was like, we're gonna have a lunch meeting, and I'm like, okay, lunch meeting, work, got it, check. And we're just sitting there at this pizza place, and I remember Chad was like, all right, we're gonna do episodic storytelling through the toy box. Uh, you're gonna do Spider-Man, you're gonna do Guardians of the Galaxy. Patrick, are you okay with the Avengers? And I'm like, this is the best meeting ever. I'm eating pizza and I'm getting assigned Marvel characters. So, um, yeah, it
Wow.
just kind of set the tone for the entire time there. But then just, I mean, just the people you worked with from the art department, from the programmers, how receptive they were in terms of, it would be great if we had this feature, or we had this theme. Um, just different little things that, if it wasn't a huge taxing request, they did everything they could to put it in there. That always, I mean, you really felt valued, which I think was incredible. And then just the community itself, like you said, there's not really been a lot of games I know of that have ever recruited from the community, and I speaks to both how much Avalanche, Disney Interactive, and Infinity as a whole valued their community, but how special that community was, um, and just remembering meeting just a handful of those people at that first summit or that second summit. It's, people you've never met in person, and that sure enough, you knew them. You already knew them. Like, it was kind of just another day, but this time you're actually hanging out. I've never had that feeling before. Very weird. but very awesome.
Pirate had some awesome ideas for some show notes, some things for us to talk about, and one of those items is the Toy Box Summit, because the three of us were there in different capacities, which is also kind of interesting. One of my all-time favorite memories of doing anything Infinity over the last 3 years, whether it be on the show or at events, was the first night I actually met you and Tyler through Pirate. I mean, we had been talking at this point a little bit here and there, but actually meeting you guys in the hotel lobby the night before the summit and just hanging out, and it was just the coolest thing ever, because like you said, Pirate, I think I'd actually met you for the first time in person earlier that afternoon.
No, we went to on your honeymoon. We were hanging out at Epcot, because that's what I do. I hang out on people's honeymoon.
It's true, but was that the year before?
No, that was
would have been the spring before. You're right. My bad.
Yeah.
Should also point out, while we're talking about Pirate being the honeymoon third wheel, that day where we all met in that hotel lobby, a little bit before then, Avalanche was having kind of this annual summer barbecue cookout, and I remember my wife was not feeling well that day. She had a big headache, and I'm like, oh, that stinks. And I was like, and Steve was in town. I'm like, hey, I got a +1. I was like, so Steve was my date to the annual Avalanche cookout and barbecue.
That's awesome.
It's true. We went to the barbecue was at a old town, Mormon town. With
this is the place, is what they call it, which is a odd name, but historical context, I guess.
Yeah, and one of my favorite Tyler Cole memories is one of the one of the buildings. This is like Old Town, and one of the buildings, it just has plaster on it, free donuts. It's like, oh, free donuts. So we went in there, and it was not free donuts. It was some weird. I'm not going to say weird because that's disrespectful, but it was just tribal mating dances or something. And all we wanted was a donut. And we felt weird, like, getting up and leaving. So we watched it. But just the look on Tyler's face when he found out he wasn't getting a donut and he's been tricked was hilarious.
Wait, so you didn't even get a donut? You just had to go there, and it was just get people in the door?
It was this weird, like, split-level colonial house. Okay. And the ambiguous free donuts, I was pointing, I guess, to the bakery, like, around the corner or down the stairs. Upstairs was, like, the cultural center. So...
Oh, that's funny.
False advertising at its finest. Just to go back a little bit, so I had actually requested that I come in town to Utah 2 days earlier than the summit because I wanted to hang out with Patrick, and he let me stay at his place, and he was really cool because I just met Patrick 1-2 times, and he let me borrow his car. So like, while he's at work, this is so funny because he's only been there like 3 months. While he's at work, I went through the entire city of Salt Lake City. And every like 5-10 minutes, I would take a picture of what I was by. And his whole team, and like even Chad Liddell's like, I've lived here my whole life. I haven't seen all this stuff.
Yeah, I've been here for 3 years. You did more in those 3 days than I've yet to do here. We still have, you left in the car like this things to do in Utah, like book. We still go by it. We're like, we should try this weekend.
It's true. The only thing I didn't get to do was take an action jumping up in the air shot in front of the High School Musical high school. But that was on the list.
High school musical.
So, and one of the funny things I remember from being there the extra day is we went to my first day there. I went to lunch with the mentors and Chad Liddell. Chad was really nice. He took us out, and he I was like, so we got this building competition coming up, and he's like, all right, let me tell you the theme is bed knobs and broomsticks and Darby O'Gill and the Little People. If you just research that, you'll be golden. And I'm like thinking, man, the whole night, like I'm thinking about what am I building from this era.
Yeah. So you bought into it? You thought he was being serious there?
I thought he was being serious, and I was like, damn, am I gonna have to make the leprechaun, this leprechaun thing, or Pete's Dragon, or what the hell's going on?
That was also the same lunch, and I won't say which community team member did this, But we were talking about this is before 2.0 came out, okay? 2.0. Someone dropped a Star Wars nod, and it got so quiet, so like you could hear just like a glass drop in the distance. It was awkward. Then someone changed the
That's
subject.
funny.
Moving on.
Yeah, if like you would just kept talking, it wouldn't have been so obvious. But since it was like an elephant in the room, so actually, I'm curious now that you brought that up. Was Star Wars in the works before 2.0 even came out? Because that would have been like a year after, I think. Because didn't Disney buy Lucasfilm in 2012?
Yeah. I mean, just speaking to my own experience, I remember going in for the on-site interview, and they're showing me all the stuff that's coming in too. And I remember, seeing Stitch before it was announced, seeing Spider-Man before he was formally announced. Trying to think, there's a few others, but like getting interviewed from all these people that I now have come to know and love.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing in this interview, Chad Liddell and Bob Lowe sit me down. They're like, "Oh, we're just going to show you one more thing we're kind of working on right now," and they show me this prototype of Tatooine, and the John Williams music just starts blasting, and I'm just like, "Ugh." I couldn't like, and I don't know if this has ever kind of come up, but the early concepts of some of those different things, and you kind of saw with some of the mini games, I guess, when you the planetoids out in the space kind of parts of the playset, with that spherical gravity and all that. There was a lot more of that, I think, early in development.
Really?
Yeah, from what I saw, like Tatooine, it was very kind of, I don't know, it was kind of Mario Galaxy-esque in a lot of ways. And I think some of that still kind of shone through in some of the space parts of the play set. But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, Star Wars, Mario Galaxy was kind of what I had in my mind. This is insane.
Yeah. Well,
and Colm's like, how was your interview? He's like, I can't even tell you anything. It sucks.
All I texted he was like, I've seen things.
I've seen things. Oh, there was a poster, and and there's this other poster.
Oh man. Oh, that's well, and at that point, you still would have been like diehard fan too. I mean, you probably would have been a little bit like shocked that you were just even sitting in those offices, let alone finding out Star Wars was eventually coming to the game.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For sure.
Cool. What about 2004 Toy Box Summit? So we started talking a little bit about that. Or 2014. Did I say 2004? Yeah,
but we know what you're talking about.
Sorry. It's been a long day. So 2014, we were talking about kind of how we were hanging out the day before, how Pirate, you got the VIP treatment a few days before. For me, in a lot of ways, this summit still is kind of a highlight because it was the first time they did it. It was at the Avalanche offices. There was not only getting first hands-on with 2.0, but the Avalanche studio tour was super awesome. What are some of your guys' remembrances and some of your favorite memories from that first summit?
We were all in the same tour group for that, weren't we? It was like us and like Ryan Panagos, Asian M from Marvel. The one thing I remember specifically about that tour, well, besides the elevator breaking down, everyone like talked complete garbage about like the old Avalanche office. Like they're like, oh, it's awful. Like not being in the game industry, I'm like, this is amazing. But I remember right before you guys went through our floor, which was the fourth floor at the time, I was like, I'm just going to double check to make sure, we took down all the sensitive materials from the walls. And sure enough, like 10 feet away from you guys, when you were coming around the corner, was just a big poster concept art of like the Han Solo figure, the Lando cast member, I think Darth Maul, and I was just like, I tore them down, and I was walking with you guys. I don't think I ever told you this. I was walking with you guys. I had them kind of like crumpled behind my back, like the entire time we were on the tour.
That would have been so bad. That's hilarious. I had no idea. Yeah, because everyone on those tours, including myself, everyone was like looking around every nook and cranny to see if there was anything that might have slipped through the cracks, and apparently they did. You were just the jerk that ripped it off the wall before we could see it.
Yeah, cool things during that. I remember during a tour we saw they were showing us concept videos of what Rapunzel would be if Rapunzel could be Iron Man in the game. And that's why, and they were kind of showing why they didn't make it so that Marvel costume would be more by a Disney character. But it was still a cool video to watch to see Rapunzel as Iron Man.
I don't remember seeing that. I don't know if they showed
it. They had animation concept of it was kind of like from Iron Man 2 where he has the briefcase suit.
Oh yeah.
And
okay.
Builds are on them. It was kind of that similar animation, but they did it on Rapunzel. I remember, yeah.
Well, and
people lost it.
That studio tour is kind of a big deal because you don't get that very often in the industry, unless you know some people, or unless you're like really in the media and have some things kind of set up beforehand. So just taking, I mean, not people off the street, but just taking kind of fans of the game and into the offices and giving them a tour, that was pretty awesome. So
yeah, once in a lifetime event that luckily we were able to have twice, but once in a lifetime event, and it wasn't the same kind of event because one was at Disneyland and the other was in Utah, Avalanche, the heart of it. So
yeah.
Two really cool but different experiences.
Well, and I'm sure most people know this, but there's kind of like an Avalanche Skydome in the game. Avalanche Studios Skydome. It's the kind of bit art 16-bit version of Utah, and you can actually see. Is it the old building in the background?
The old building is there. Yeah. So. And then you actually see there's a big lake, which is supposed to represent the Great Salt Lake, and so.
Yeah. What about you, Pirate? What do you remember about that first summit?
I remember that I had this hat on and I stayed in character the entire time, no matter what we were doing, and it was just funny, just walking around the streets of Salt Lake City. I went in all the big Mormon temples, and everybody was just staring at me like I was some freak, which was awesome. And that was a good time. But then it was so much fun to see everybody as they trickled into that Hilton Hotel and greet everyone. Met some great, wonderful people that we're going to know the rest of our lives from it. And overall, it was just an eye-opening, I want to do this all the time type experience. And it was great that Will was that you were able to represent the media, because they had a lot of people I felt like were media, but you were the only Infinity guy there, which was really cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
I remember doing in both the first and the second summit, there was a moment where the builders just started building, and kind of there was a group of us from Avalanche that kind of had to do basically a press junket, different groups, and I get so nervous with some of these. And I just I remembered I would always see okay, Will's down the line. You were always the one I was looking forward to because you knew the terms we would talk about. I could say toy box and you knew exactly what I meant. It was just
that's cool.
Once you got to Will, it's okay, you've made it. You made it through.
You could breathe a sigh of relief and relax. Yeah. Those are some of my highlights as well, hanging out with you guys, and because it was always just it was like when Pirate was on the show here, it was just hanging out and talking and kind of getting a little more. I felt like you could relax a little bit more, and you didn't have to be as much on point. And it was like you were talking, not saying me as your friend, but like you were talking to everyone kind of as equals, and not having to broaden it for the greater audience. So that was pretty cool. It's kind of funny you say that you were nervous. I wanted to bring this up a few minutes ago when you were talking about how you were a little intimidated when you first started working there because you came from the community, you came from playing the game, whereas a lot of these people working there, have been dedicating their whole lives. It's funny you say that because like you kind of became the face of the community team, didn't you? And in fact, I wasn't there even like you didn't even have a nickname. It's escaping me now. I don't know, Pirate, if you remember what Patrick's nickname, something baby JV or something like that. Or yeah, JV Junior.
Oh gosh,
face red.
Yeah, a little bit. No, but in all sincerity, like you kind of became the community face, the community voice. I remember, especially in the 2.0 early days of launch, like you were everywhere. You were on Toy Box TV. You were the person like presenting things all the time. I even heard stories where you were like doing presentations for internally as well, and that's pretty cool, man. It's like that teacher aspect of you coming out.
And I think that's kind of what started it. Prior, I don't think when they brought me on that was ever kind of part of the plan, but when right around the time of that summit, actually the week of that summit, we started doing these kind of interviews in person with people at the summit, or we started doing things on the phone, and because they kind of saw like our story and they're like, wow, we could really basically get some coverage out of that because it is cool what they did. So it kind of started with a couple phone interviews to different places. The one that my mom's the most proud of is that I think she now has a New York Times article that I was interviewed for. That's always kind of cool. But it was with that first summit, they gave us a slot in their live stream. And they're like, talk about the features of the toy box. Because at that time, we were kind of, us five, we were the ones who had spent more time actually in the toy box from a player's perspective, being able to do that. And so we could speak to it, arguably from a different perspective than the programmers who designed the toys or the art department. And they all had their own panels to kind of showcase them in those lights too. But I remember they're like, we're going to give you the slot. And they're like, they weren't quite sure. We got this like crash course media training, like probably 4 hours before the whole thing. And it's like, don't say this, don't be racy or, but yeah, it was kind of from that first opportunity that they gave us to kind of do that 30 minutes of here's the 2.0 Logic toys, that all these other kind of opportunities sort of arose where, JV's out in Europe, so we need someone to fill in on Toy Box TV. Just different kind of commercial spots like that, because as a group we got pretty comfortable speaking publicly, but we knew what we were talking about in terms of the Creativa toys, and we kind of got to the point where we knew how to speak to both kind of our power users, the people who are the dedicated artists, and people who may not be as familiar with the game. So we were able to speak kind of on those two levels.
Yeah. Kind of wear two different hats there. Justin in the chat is actually asking a great question kind of along these lines. Patrick, what was your favorite place that DI had you go to represent the toy box and building?
Ooh, okay. Because there was a ton of great opportunities, but I think the one that takes the cake for me was that October that 2.0 came out. I got to go to New York City. Disney had at the New York City Comic-Con, they did a panel. I had never been to New York, even though I lived on the East Coast. I'd never been to New York City. Always wanted to go, and it happened to fall right in line with my 30th birthday.
Wow.
So I got to celebrate my 30th birthday in New York City on a panel in New York Comic Con, and the panel I was on, because I was basically there. I had made a toy box kind of to be in kind of sync with the New York Comic Con. It looked like a comic convention kind of box. Speak a little bit to that, but also kind of tell my story there. But the panel I was on, I had JV 2 seats down, John Blackburn sitting right next to me. So the two biggest shots in the whole game, right there. And then to my left is Joe Quesada. And I'm just thinking about how many times I've seen this man's name either as an artist or an editor in a comic book I've read or in the credits of every Marvel thing ever. And I'm just trying not to freak out. And yeah,
That's cool.
that was pretty cool. Of course, like I shared my story, and of course, every question in the crowd was, when are we getting X-Men characters? When are we getting Fantastic Four characters? And so I just kind of like slumped back in my chair. I was like, I'm gonna let the big guns handle this.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Wow, that's a cool story.
And you got to do a presentation at PAX, at one of the PAX conferences.
It wasn't PAX. I would love to go on the PAX, but the Dice Summit.
Oh,
Dice.
wow.
In Las Vegas.
Really?
Bob Lowe did a talk kind of about how the toy box came to be. And so I kind of helped him with the last kind of 15, 20 minutes of his talk. He kind of kicked it to me, and I was able to speak. And I used the toy box a little bit as a presentation there as well. But yeah, that was my first time in Vegas. And then, that was a lot of big names in the industry.
Well,
I remember I got to go. They had a little award show. Not a little award show. It was an award show the last night. And we got to go. Never been to an award show before. And there was this kind of like mini red carpet, and they push you through, and it's still kind of a blur because no one cares about me. So I was going, and I remember, and I'm proud and embarrassed by this. I stepped on Troy Baker's shoe.
Oh, no
as
way.
I was going. He was super cool with it. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, because they looked like $1,000 shoes.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, that's cool, mate.
Oh, that's so.
They were.
Oh man, that's awesome. For those that don't know,
Yeah.
Dice is an industry conference, so it's like all internal people that work in the industry. So, I mean, that's almost a bigger deal than like going to a con, just because it's your peers and stuff, and you got to step on Troy Baker's shoes, which I would have called that a bucket list item. That would be one for me anyway.
I've actually put that on my resume now. It's one of the top bullet points. So
You haven't rubbed shoulders with Troy Baker. You stepped on his shoes instead.
that's right. But yeah, I got
cool.
to meet a lot of cool people at that one. Sat at a table with. Have you guys played the game Never Alone?
Mm-hmm.
I heard it.
I got to the table we sat at for that. I got to sit with some of the developers from that game, and their story is incredible too. Just a bunch of different people I would have never gotten to meet if it wasn't for this opportunity. So
That's cool. Yeah, good call there, Pirate. Any other?
Just to bring it back to Summit, because we have a funny Will story as well. We don't want to leave him out on this. So we go into it's build night, so we have all night to build, and we go to each of our stations, and on each of the stations is every Disney themed Disney Infinity Power Disc, which none of them have been announced. And Will's there, and he's got his camera all set up, and he's there taking individual pictures of each one, and we're putting them on the base and checking them out.
Yeah, you were helping me.
I was like, don't say my name, don't say my name. But like JV just freaked out. And like I think Will was interviewing him or something, and right before the interview he's like, yeah, some goddammit person was photographing all these power discs and putting them on the internet already. And Will's like,
I'm like, oh, that sucks.
oh, that sucks, JV.
There's some jerks out there. Oh yeah, that happened. I forgot about that.
But yeah, they didn't know if they were supposed to show those yet. But I think in the end, Disney Interactive had decided, you know what, the game's coming out. We might as well just show all of these cool power discs. So
Yeah, because that was
And
August.
that was kind of my strategy as well when I was doing my presentation. I wanted to be able to like show as many as I could. So I'd be like, "Ooh, vote for Pirate! Look at this! I'm gonna put you those kitten fists, and I should have done like the carousel horse of like of Hulk bouncing all the way up to the Milano." But
That's funny.
I remember they were more tech. They were there was chaos about the power disc, but I remember arguably causing even a bigger stir is that they gave all the attendees really nice gift bags with figures that were not going to be out yet for a while. And I remember I think it was Maleficent, was one
yeah,
of the ones that gave people. And people, sure enough, looked on the back, and I think it was Baymax was on the back, Baymax and Hero, and they had not been announced yet. And people really didn't know much about the film at that point. And that, I think, was the bigger, the one that people were flipping out the day of the live stream for. So
yeah, it's funny because like after those gift bags would come out, like you would hear all these whispers like, hey, you pirate, did you check out the back of that Maleficent box yet? And, no, or actually, I think you told me that. I'm like, no, what's there? And like, just go look. So, and there's so many details. It had to be take an act of God to keep all of that under wraps.
it is so hard. We give Disney and Disney Interactive a hard time for all these leaks coming out. It is hard to keep something that good a secret, and there are things that have been kept secret. So,
like what?
there sure has.
Well, I got a story later on that we'll talk about. And I tried my best to keep it a secret, but it's hard, man.
You were going to say something, Patrick?
Coming up later.
There's your tease.
On the secret thing? No, I plead the fifth on that
one. Should we move on to Summit 2015? Or do you
do it.
All right.
Yeah.
So Summit 2015, slightly different than the year before, and at this point it was kind of becoming apparent that it was going to be an annual thing, or at least as long as the game was going to be around. This one they pulled out all the stops. I couldn't have imagined them doing more than they did the first year, but sending everyone to Disneyland on its Diamond Celebration, and not only that, but having the summit inside Disneyland, and having the participants being able to like stay overnight in Disneyland if they wanted. What was the deal? It was like if you chose to stay, you had to stay right in that room, and even if you had to use the restroom, you had to be escorted kind of like across the street. But if you chose to stay, you couldn't leave the room, or
they basically had a shuttle, and it was like every couple hours this security guard on a golf cart could take you back to your hotel room. But yeah, you were pretty much, when you were there, you were there. It got a little more lax around like 3:30, 4 a.m. because I did sneak out just to kind of see. I didn't go far because who knows what's out there, but it is a surreal feeling to just where we were kind of in the Hollywoodland part of California Adventure. You'd look down to where Buena Vista Street is and nothing, no one. The lights are still on though.
Yeah.
Many of the lights are still on. Some of the music's faintly playing. It's one part eerie, two parts just really awesome. But yeah, some of the stuff we did at that, like the night before the big build fest, two things very, very few people can ever say that they have done in Disneyland. Seeing Walt's apartment and being able to drink alcohol in Disneyland. Not California Adventure, Disneyland. I'm not going to say which one I got a bigger kick out of, but two things that probably will never get to do again, just once in a lifetime opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, that night before, it's going down in one of my favorite memories ever, going through Walt's apartment, hanging out with everyone in the, I don't even know what's called, like the Country Bear Jamboree. That's what I think of.
And that's not even there anymore. That's that Star Wars Land is going to be where that is.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
We got to experience it before it got demolished, but that summer was cool because they had attendees and they had more people in the media that we got to meet as well, and it was a bitch to make it to that summit because the first one was so competitive. But people didn't really know about the first summit, and then after it got streamed and blown up, and they said, "Oh, people won PS4s," and like it was hard to make it back. Only 6 out of the 15 people that went to first summit.
That's crazy.
And every single one of them would tell you, "Oh, I want to go back. I'm gonna do anything to go back the next year." Only 6 of them made it.
Wow.
Had enough impact to be invited to this mega one at Disneyland, and newcomers who we all love meeting. All saw what happened last year, and they got a bite of that. We call it Summit Fever, and everybody wanted a piece of it to get to go to this event, and every one of them that made it definitely earned it.
That's cool. Well, and it was not only like showing appreciation to those builders that had worked all year and worked really hard. Like you said a couple weeks ago, Pirate, it was like a second full-time job for you outside of your family responsibilities.
All the master artists, you can ask any of them, they feel like they worked for Disney. Building, they weren't officially mentors, but they had that same experience where they felt like they're not getting paid, but they're giving this to the community. So it was a nice little incentive to be able to do that. And Disney was so nice. I mean, they were sleeping there overnight, and they bring out 60th anniversary pillows and blankets for people to want to take a nap or go to sleep.
So they plan little things like that throughout the entire the night.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one part, it got kind of awkward because while the park was still open, towards kind of the close, we're like, we should probably hit something before it gets closed. Pirate and I just shouted out to the entire group, like, because we were 10 feet from the Monsters Inc. ride. And we're like, we're all going to the Monsters Inc. ride. Let's do it. And, like, right as we all left, they were prepping, like, this big surprise. They were going to have Olaf come. Everyone could do a meet and greet, like Olaf. And I remember, like, they were getting it prepped and ready, and then just all of us left. And they're like, where'd they go? They were panicking. Like, we got off the ride. They're like, get back in there and give him a hug.
That was hilarious. Yeah.
So then we gave him a hug, and then me and Patrick went back out, and we hung out at Mad Tea Party, which is this big, like, disco party event that was, like, right outside of the studio we were building at. My only regret is we didn't go on Tower of Terror, because we totally could have made it there in time. But we had a blast just hanging out, having a drink at during this competition.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. I remember, because I stayed up the entire night as people were kind of finishing up. I won't say which of the Toy Box artists did this, but there was one Toy Box artist who was building a level, and the Empire March was playing the entire time, all night. And, like, people would suddenly, like, go over when he was like turn it down, and then somehow it magically would turn right back up. And so since that day, I can no longer listen to the Imperial March. But I remember staying up the entire night, and we had a few hours until the live stream. We're going to, like, go back, shower, whatever. But we're in the park. It was just, like, it had just opened. We're like, Tyler, Cole, and I, and some of the other people who were, I think Jose, the other mentor, we were like, you know what? Let's go on Radiator Springs Racers. And we were like the first people on. And we're like, this is amazing. And we got off, and we realized that technically, since it had been the next day and we stayed overnight, we were technically in Disneyland without a ticket. And so we had a moment of panic where, like, what's going to happen? Like, this is technically... So we leave. But we leave because everyone was in the Grand Californian Hotel. So we go in that special entrance. And they always check your ticket. For some reason, they check your ticket on the way out. And this guy's like, where's your ticket? And we're like, we don't have a ticket. And he's like, you have to have a ticket. We're like, we have to have a ticket to leave? He's like, are you going to keep us in the park? Are we trapped forever? And he was like, good point. You let us out.
Oh, that's funny.
It's cool to say that officially was in the park without a ticket at one point.
Yeah, totally. And there for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And after hours, yeah.
And also, it obviously isn't hard to sneak into the park because JV snuck in the middle. He texts me or messaged me like, "Are people still awake?" I'm like, "Yeah, people are still awake. Every single one of us are still here." And I don't know what it's like 3 or 4 or whatever. He just shows up. He's wearing his T-shirt and he starts periscoping the whole thing.
Periscope.
It was hilarious, and it was a good everybody being exhausted. It was a good refresher to get everybody to keep building after that.
Yeah.
There's nothing like at 2:30 in the morning, someone shoving a phone in your face and being like, "Sing a song."
And Patrick's like, "No, I'm paying you, damn it, sing."
What song do you sing?
Do you want to build a toy box?
Yeah, he made me sing, "Do you want to build a toy box?"
Nice.
There's video of it somewhere, I'm pretty sure, but
Patrick did a great job. He's spot on, like ad-libbing the lyrics.
Were you guys? I don't remember. Were you guys on the same team for both summits? Or yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's cool. Any funny building stories?
The first summit was funny because they had so many technical difficulties.
Oh yeah.
Poor Ollie, Finn Warrior, his game kept crashing, so he had to literally rebuild his entire level like 3 or 4 times. And at the point, it was one point where he was like, "I'm not gonna do it anymore." We had to encourage him to do it, but
wow,
there was another one. This other guy, Barry Bomber, Kevin Barry, was like, "I think I'm almost done. I'm just gonna take an hour nap or something." And then he showed up like 5 minutes before the stream. We were like, "Dude, half your box isn't built. You went to sleep the whole night."
Oh, that's fine.
I remember, definitely because the building, when it came to the building, everyone was kind of in the zone. They got a plan, you stuck to it. Everyone had their own process, which that alone was fascinating. You watch the hive mind that is the Daddy Twins, or here comes Steve, and he's got his template all set up with his block art already planned. You just have all these different kind of strategies. I remember Frank, the Baroness. He basically, he was so in the zone. He had his head, sat down. He had his headphones on to focus, and he looked so intense. He looked like a guy you would not pick a fight with. And then all of a sudden, he just pulls out a giant box of frozen cereal and just starts eating Anna and Elsa marshmallows the entire time. I was like, props to this guy. I remember the live stream had a ton of fun stuff where we just had to improv. I remember Ollie, the same guy who had trouble trying to get his level built. He's trying to build it, and he accidentally, I don't know how it happened, he accidentally pulled out his wand and deleted the stairs that you had to go to get up to this objective next door, whatever. And I'm like, oh crud. And I remember because on the stage, JV and Blackbird are giving commentary. And I remember JV was like, "This would be a good time to show our new undo function." And I'm like, that is not how the undo function works. So I was able to quickly place something down, or we put down a flyer or something.
Undo looks surprisingly like building.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, and our group had to go first for the first summit, so it was kind of it was good to get it over with, but man.
You were always a comedian up there on stage when you were presenting. In fact, weren't you nominated to present for your team for the second summit or something?
Me?
Yeah.
No, for the second one, I was last. I just sat there and waited for my turn for that presentation. Patrick didn't want to talk. I'm like, dude, help out a little bit.
Yeah.
But no. But yeah, the comedian part, yeah. But the other part.
I remember with the presentations, one of the other teams, the Daddy Twins, who are just brilliant builders. They're very soft-spoken, and so they were in this group, and they were, playing through their part of the level, and everyone's just jaws dropped at how beautiful it is. But every time they were asked a question like, how did you build this? Or what was your thought here? Every time the sound spiked because that stupid Imperial March again just started blasting. So it was kind of like, so how'd you build this? And like, well, first we dun, 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 dun.
You're not supposed to say who it was.
Oh,
Felt so bad for him.
that's funny.
And the other thing, in the second summit, so Lauren was one of the jokes in my box where she was the evil emperor, and she kept coming by my station. I had an undo button, so whenever she would come by or I'd look over my shoulder, I'd hit that button, and it would delete anything in that box that had to do with her being in it or what the theme was. So I thought that was.
So it was a surprise at the end when you presented.
Yeah, that was an added job on my part.
Nice. Oh man, Pirate. A little bit ago, you were talking about how you ask any toy box artist, and they feel like they work for Disney, building these toy boxes week in and week out. Summit number 2, they kind of took that and ran with it, and actually made you toy box master builders, and a collective that was kind of like a board. And they surprised everyone by saying that you were going to, as a group, be able to decide an upcoming figure. Do you want to go into any details on that?
I would love to go into details. It's so funny to have Twitter accounts. Panspiracy. People don't think that we picked Peter Pan, but there's actually.
Is it really a Panspiracy?
There's accounts out there where they.
That's
ridiculous. So
that's his community for you.
They made up this panel, so we're master artists and part of this advisory board. So we're exhausted. We've been building all night. We're all emotional and tired, and they tell us, "Oh, you get to pick a character." So for the next couple of hours, we're going to have to go into another room. I think we're at the Grand California. There was a nice room set up, built boardroom style. So kind of like a box, and then JV's in the front with the dry erase board, and the deal was he was going to write down all the names. So we shout out as many Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, whatever we wanted to suggest as a character, and he would write them all on the board. There's a picture of him writing these down on the board. I already knew who I wanted in the game. Darkwing Duck was my target, and I thought it was a lock. Like even before we went into that meeting, and I was asking the community too, in that the ones that were in the audience. It's like, who do you want in there? And like 4 or 5 people, Darkwing Duck. So I'm talking to Master Arts. I'm like, dude, we should get Darkwing Duck in there. Oh yeah, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be awesome. He's a lock. And then we get in there. Everybody's naming names, and any one of these characters, people would die to have in the game. It's everybody's favorites are up there. And
Spell them. Come on, who was on there?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, me and Lauren were asking people on Twitter, like, who do you want on there? And we would shout out the name. So Kronk, Jango Fett, General Grievous, Regina from Once Upon a Time, random names, but anything Disney was. I think I threw up the Hitchhiking Ghost, the Hatbox Ghost, like really cool stuff. And so that was the first round. And then the second round was everybody at the table got a vote to pick one character, and they would put like a tick mark next to each one. They got it, and then there was like 3 or 4 rounds. It got down to the final 4, which was Peter Pan, Darkwing Duck, Beast, and Goofy. Any one of those, anybody I'm sure would love to have.
Yeah.
And then it got down to the final 2, which was Peter Pan and Darkwing Duck. And I swear it was like by 1 vote, Darkwing Duck lost to Peter Pan. And I'm not dogging Peter Pan at all. I would love to have the Peter Pan figure. Peter Pan's my favorite Disney movie. Captain Hook's my favorite character. Flying characters are the most popular in the game, especially for building the toy box. So it all made sense. Peter Pan would have been great. I still wish we could have it, or I wish an artist would build Peter Pans and send them out. But I really wanted Darkwing Duck. So Peter Pan got voted in, I think, by one vote, and they really wanted us to keep the secret of Peter Pan a secret for the announcement, because that was going to be such a big deal. And I don't think anybody was expecting Peter Pan to be the figure. And this is where I come back to saying that it's hard to keep a Disney secret, because a Disney Infinity secret, because we went to California Adventures that night, and they had these two kids that were following me around for 2 hours asking me, is it this? Is it this? Is it? I'm like, no, I'm not telling you. So it went through all of that, and then all week people asking me, through D23 people asking me, and then this is where I said, this one, like, I was stonewalled the whole week. You're not getting this out of me. The last night at D23, I got this, I had Darkwing Duck in Infinity drawn out by one of the comic book artists, and it has Mabel. I'm showing this to people. I'm showing this to Will. Yeah. And I'm like, look, this is awesome. Like, they had Mabel is being dangled in front of Darkwing Duck, and Olaf is being dangled in front of Darkwing Duck, because those are the ones that were getting chosen off him. I was like, yeah, I should have had Peter Pan now, huh? And then I said it without even knowing what the hell I said. And people, and you and another person that was with us is just staring at me like, what did you just say? I was like, what did I just say? But luckily I have good friends that they know I would kill them if they would have mentioned me. But it was
the deer in the headlights look was pretty. It's fitting for you.
Yeah, and y'all are good friends and didn't say anything, but I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, it was like the day before.
Yeah, day before.
That I remember that meeting being so secretive. Like, me and the other community team members, we wanted in there so bad.
I was gonna ask,
and we got locked out.
You weren't in there.
We got locked out. But we were so anxious to figure out who it was. We were waiting right in the Grand Californian lobby the entire time the meeting was going on. And I remember we were just waiting to see when they'd come out. But we'd also stayed up all night watching this build-a-thon. So I passed out in this big comfy chair in the lobby. And not just peaceful sleep, head back, mouth open, snoring loudly. And I was told later by someone who was across the way, who was watching me this entire time, because it's not creepy. Since D23 was ramping up and guests for D23 were coming in, while I was asleep, George Lucas walks behind me. And then my personal favorite is, not only does John Lasseter show up behind me, he meets with 4 of his top assistants 2 feet away from me. And I'm snoring, and no idea. And, yeah. And they just walk on, do their own thing.
They probably weren't there when you woke up because you were snoring too loud and they had to move their meeting.
Exactly. So I remember as soon as they got out, a lot of people were mum. I'm like, I work for Disney. Guys, tell me who it is. And they're like, can't say. And I remember it took about 5-6 people, because, man, they were ironclad with that secret.
That's disappointing.
So for Panspiracy, no, we picked the darn character. It happened. It just, unfortunately,
didn't happen.
Coming out, but that was a pretty big deal for them to let fans pick.
Did they? Okay. I'd heard rumors. You can or you don't have to speak on this, but did they sway you away from certain characters because the possibility of them making it one day in the game, so you wouldn't kind of waste a vote?
No, I'm sure they would want us to pick one that they were already in their their sights on. That'd be a bonus for them.
Yeah.
And I even think I heard JV say, "Oh, damn it, that wasn't one that we wanted down the line," because they had no concept art for it. Yeah. It just said the name at D23. If they had it, they would want to show a picture of it or something. but they were like, man, I really wish you would have picked something different.
Yeah.
That we knew was coming. So
was it a cordial and respectful kind of meeting? Did like, were people really trying to convince others for their, like, were you trying to convince people for Darkwing and others were really putting their weight
I was
behind?
rolling my eyes at the people that told me they were voting Darkwing and they went
And they did
Peter
it.
Pan.
It's like a bad episode of Disney Survivor or something like that.
Yeah, and then it was I remember it was me, Sumerian, and Lauren at the end. Us three were Darkwing Ducks, non-swaying from the vote, and like we knew we would lose by one, and we're like, oh my god, I can't believe it. But you know what? It is what it is. Peter Pan would have been a great character as well. So no matter what would have got picked, it would have been great for the game.
Well, speaking of things that aren't coming out, Papa, do you have any... Papa, that's weird to say. Papa Echo, do you have anything... there's been lots that have come out as of recently with the game kind of ending and the NDAs kind of expiring and severances being paid out and stuff like that. Is there anything that you were excited about? I want to say Boondogger Man in the chat asked this. Did you have anything specific either we know about or we don't know about that you've either kind of seen or had hands on or at least known about that you were really excited for?
Definitely. There was. I can't speak too much to the figure side of things, just because I know that's probably the touchiest of all the possible subjects. But speaking of touchy, though, I'm not going to say which ones, but I may have or may not have held some of those that have been leaked. So it's definitely a different feeling when you've actually held one in your hands, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Now it's not coming. But, again, figures, I'm a collector as a fan. Would love to have seen all of those things. I know for me, a lot of what I was really most excited for was in the toy box. There was a lot of exciting toys and a lot of exciting new tools that were kind of coming. Probably the one that... there's a ton I could speak to probably, but there was one that was essentially a mechanic since Pokemon's all the rage again nowadays with Pokemon Go. I know one particular game that was a spinoff of that franchise that everyone's loved that I'm surprised we haven't seen a lot of in the last few years or last decade and a half since it came out was Pokemon Snap, with kind of that capturing thing. And I know that they had been pretty much getting that technology down where they could recognize, you'd have a camera toy. You could take screenshots where, it would recognize what was in that screenshot, what character, what items, what themes, and just the possibilities of structured gameplay that was going to come with that, but also things that people could have built as well. Was very, very promising. You had essentially the character would kind of pull out. It was almost like a selfie stick, where they could take photos, and those photos you could do logic essentially, or eventually you would have been able to do logic where, you would have told someone take a picture of Rapunzel with these 3 townspeople or Snow White with these dwarf townspeople. It would have registered that picture. Also would have had sort of like they were working on sticker functions where essentially you could take a photo and you could apply that to a poster that you could put on the wall of your toy box or a billboard.
That's awesome.
So you could basically customize things within the toy box. Was very cool. It was very weird to see the Infinity characters that, especially those 1.0 ones that have been around for 3 years, pulling out a selfie stick. But especially in a Disney park themed toy box where, based off a park where those things have been banned. Yeah. But those were awesome. There were some UI enhancements I thought would have been really useful for the power builders where you essentially could have tested your connections and seen what they would have done without actually firing them off.
Really? So you wouldn't have to
So it would have basically shown you the simulation.
Wow.
Stuff like that, really awesome. One of the things we had been kind of wanting and requesting for the last couple of years that they were making headway on too was I don't know the best way to describe it, but it was basically like a giant plane that you could put either horizontally or vertically that would go through the entirety of the toy box, essentially, and you could essentially put a skin on that, so it could look like water, it could look like lava, but you could also put that on a movable path. So you could have water essentially rising in your toy box. You could have logic to where if the player hit that threshold, they could, die or death, or you could change the Sky Dome then to the Finding Dory Sky Dome.
Oh, wow.
You could, ton of possibilities with that one. And I won't say too much as to how it was going to be applied, but they were also trying to explore a little bit with, in terms of mission givers, we've had, the little blockhead townspeople, which to an extent is nice. There's also been the kind of bigger cast members that are a little more to scale with the game. But they were looking into how to make the avatars that were essentially the characters you can already play as, putting them in your toy box as mission givers.
Wow.
With limited AI and animation, because then the big challenge there was that those characters are so memory intensive and they're so taxing that you can only, there's a reason why it's 4-player max in a toy box. So if you made one a mission giver, what does that mean? But they were looking into kind of how could you make Mr. Incredible as the Mr. Incredible, a mission giver or someone who could fight alongside you, maybe.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Feel free to go ahead, Pirate.
I was gonna say, did you know of any of the Mona playset toy box unlocks or?
With the last build of the game that I had played, a lot of the Moana, as far as what got integrated into the toy box, was not quite there. It kind of came at a time where, at least from a toy box perspective, pretty much when the game shut down, the Dory stuff just made it into the toy box. But I mean, from concept art, like clearly the pig as a mount, which we've kind of seen as the puffer pig, and Archie the scare pig. That was, a long line of tiny pig mounts, which is a legacy that this game would have had. But yeah, I'm not sure what else would have translated.
Speaking of
things
legacy,
about grappling hooks, but I'm not sure.
Speaking of legacy, Disney, it seemed like Disney Infinity loved horses, because we sure got a lot of those in 1.0 and 2.0.
I was always wondering if there's going to be like a Kentucky Derby style toy box expansion game with just the 8 million army of horses that we had amassed, but alas, was not the case.
So
is there any were there any horses that were coming that we didn't know? We never got that horse.
Yeah. There was, and one of the cool parts about kind of being on the community team, and again, kind of just a testament to how open and responsive all the other teams were to kind of our ideas, is that we were asked to sometimes provide some brainstorm on different characters and ideas for power discs or mounts. And one of the ones that I suggested, I'm not sure if anyone else suggested it. I did not see it on our OneNote, which was kind of the document we kind of used to amass all these. But I remember that the time where we were meeting for 4.0 mounts, it was specifically mounts, I remember. It was the day after the Gravity Falls episode where Mabel tries to find the unicorn. And it's like this incredibly condescending, passive-aggressive unicorn. And it was probably my favorite character in that entire series. And I was like, I want this unicorn as a mount. And so I put it in that OneNote and didn't think much of it, hadn't heard much. And then one day, I just saw posted on the concept art that glorious unicorn with its big bulging eyes, infinite eyes. I was like, oh, I don't know if it was going to be approved. Finally, it got to the point where someone did concept of it, and
That's awesome.
that would have been my go-to mount
Oh
every
yeah,
time.
I can just imagine
Yeah.
what music they get
Yeah.
to play it. The hard rock, electronic music. That would have been.
And we already, with the good dinosaur characters, we introduced speaking mounts. So
Yeah.
I was thinking, man, if they
Yeah.
could get the voice actor just to constantly belittle the player, drive the little kids to tears as they're playing, it would have been fantastic.
Any other cool mounts?
As far as horses,
No, not anything. It doesn't have to be horses.
anything. I know Pegasus from Hercules at one point may have
Oh,
made
wow.
it. I think I've seen concept for him. Seen him on a couple lists. He was definitely talked about and really highly requested. Another one that vehicle-wise, that we had requested, and again, just like the unicorn, had kind of gone into at least the concept, was the Thunderquack. So
Yeah.
you already have the theme music from the Ratcatcher in there. It just made too much sense.
Yeah.
I wanna cry now.
Sorry. Brought the show down.
Possibilities are infinite.
Yeah.
3 years as a host on this show, and you've yet to break into tears. I thought I almost had you.
I did get a little misty-eyed. Feel free to not respond or say shut up, Will. Quadrupeds, did you ever hear or see, or do you know of any work? Because that was something that people, I think, had asked for since day one.
As far as I had seen, there wasn't really much on the quadruped front as a playable avatar character. From kind of I can't.
Okay.
I don't think that problem has been solved really.
All right.
Maybe they were delaying the inevitable. I'm not sure, but never saw a playable Simba or anything anywhere.
Well, kind of on that, on those lines, what about water? Especially with Moana, because that would have been a cool toy box mechanic, and I know something that people had also wanted for a very long time. Is that kind of what you were getting at with that plane?
With the water,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
There's I don't know if that was coming directly from Moana. Again, can't really speak too much onto what, because I just don't know what was coming from the Moana playset. I could say that just different things. That plane would have provided sort of what would look like water across your entire toy box,
Awesome.
which would have been cool. One thing that was actually cut from 3.0, and I was so heartbroken, was that there was this, and it was actually, it's used in the Speedway. There was this piece, and there was this weird time where we got to build in the toy box before 3.0 came out, where things were being kind of put in the toy box that weren't going to stay in the toy box.
Okay.
Because the Speedway was being done by Sumo, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Sumo Digital.
I just want, they were putting in assets that they were going to put in the Speedway, and they weren't sure kind of what file they would go in since it was a Toy Box Speedway. A lot of those pieces ended up in our Toy Box ribbon when we were building, a pre-release version of the game. So there was a sweet spot of like a couple weeks where we got to play with basically all the pieces that were in the Speedway that maybe didn't make it into the toy box. Most of them did. A lot of them didn't. And one of the pieces they had, it's in the Gravity Falls Raceway. And it's the part where you're on the docks, the monster pops up, and sorry, I'm getting a little dry throat, but there was, we obviously have the sea monster, but there was this giant terrain piece that was water. And essentially it was like semi-transparent. So you could actually theme the bed of the water.
Oh, wow.
And so to whatever terrain you wanted. But it wasn't like you sunk into it. It was like a solid terrain block. It just looked like a big water block. I'm sure it probably got cut because of memory, graphic intensity. Probably was a monster on that meter, but man, was it pretty.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Bet you guys had fun just messing around with some of those things that either you knew weren't going to be in there or things that just ended up not making it in.
Oh, yeah. Some of the things we built early on, it was a double-edged sword because there was stuff when we didn't know if it was going to make it into the toy box or not, and we couldn't figure out how this worked. But sometimes when you put it in, it would stay in there forever, even though it got removed from the ribbon. Sometimes you would go in building the next day, and all of a sudden, these massive pieces are now gone because they've been removed from the game. One of the levels I built that actually made it onto the disc was one of the adventures in the Toy Box Hub. And it was the downhill Gravity Falls golf cart race.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I got to build, and I built that entirely in the toy box. It went from the top of the toy box to the bottom. But if you look at that level, all those assets that are in there aren't in the toy box. The bushes, even some of the versions of things we already made aren't in the toy box. All of that stuff never kind of made it over. So, but I got to build with it anyway.
That's awesome.
Which was yeah.
What about speaking of unannounced? Did you get hands-on, or did you get to see in game any like cool townspeople or block townspeople or anything like that?
Townspeople. There wasn't. As far as kind of moving on to future versions of Infinity, we did not see any new Disney proper townspeople. One of the more requested townspeople, or highly anticipated townspeople, we were hoping to get was the people who won from the Toy Box Summit, as they were promised this year. See, someone was spacing out for a few minutes. And just
Will's asking questions.
Okay.
You snapped right back there.
It was, oddly enough, the status of the community artists, second Summit Toy Box winners, had a phone meeting with Glendale one day, and they asked us, like, had we had any updates on the townspeople? Because it was about that time of year where I guess they started working on the Mighty Gidas one the year before. And we were like, we have no idea. We didn't think that didn't really fall to the community team. So I was like, okay, not much to report on there. So I started doing some digging around on my own. And at the time, no one had been really working on these yet. So as I started asking people from the art department and the Toy Box team, I inadvertently became in charge of those townspeople. And so those were basically the week before we got the fateful news. That was my task, was to kind of start reaching out to those Toy Box artists, start get their information on what they'd like to look like, and then relay that to some of the concept artists. And I remember before, because I knew someone was leaving for the other side of the world for a few months, I wanted to get his stuff. So I got a really funny string of texts. It was actually, I remember at dinner, I was sitting there with my wife, and all of a sudden I just started getting like reference photos of Steve on my phone just popping up. And he's like, I want to wear this type of shirt. And Morgan, my wife, she's like, you guys have the weirdest relationship ever. But yeah, so that was actually going to be my duty.
Wow.
Is to try to gather all the people. And then sure enough, a few days later, we kind of got the news. So,
God, that's a bummer. You were on the
cusp. So it goes.
Sure.
But just so you guys know, it died in my hands. So I don't know if that makes any of us feel better, but just know it'll forever weigh on my conscience.
I was gonna say now it just gives us someone to blame.
Yeah, just send your angry tweets to this Twitter tag right here.
That's where I'm sending it. That's where I'm sending it. So two things, and we probably got to wrap up. But so I remember you telling me, and Tom Sestrada was talking about this last week about a secret Star Wars room for Episode 7. And I remember you telling me where you had a task where you had to go in that said room and build a toy box, and you were scared to go in it because you didn't want to get spoiled. And then,
yep. So okay, back in our old Avalanche office, we had basically the Episode 7 room, and it essentially at one point was designed by the architects of that building to be a broom closet, like a storage. And they retrofitted it basically to have like a card key access and like a security camera on it. And that's where all the stuff was being held. Before they turned it into that, the community team needed a place to record like Toy Box TV video segments and, the tips and tricks videos that we would do. So we're like, oh, there's a broom closet there. And we're like, can we use that? And they're like, yeah, sure, no one's using it. It's a broom closet. So that was like our little like, hobo setup was, us in this little room, dimly lit room. There's a drain on the floor, for what I don't know, but that was where our early kind of Toy Box TV segments were. So we were all set up in there. And then one day we go over and it's got a keypad on it. And we're like, what is this? And they're like, you can't go in there. And we're like, we go in there all the time. Our stuff's in there. Like we had our dev kit in there, our recording stuff in there. We're like, all right, you can go in, but make sure you don't look at anything and don't tell anyone if you accidentally see anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I remember, movies come out. So the one thing I did see, and it freaked me out for probably 6 months until that film came out. Maybe even longer than that, now I think about it. One of the things I saw as I was walking out was there was a Chewbacca with like a bionic arm. Like he was missing an arm. And I guess like some early version of the film, like when he gets shot in that scene on the freighter, they're like, maybe he just loses the arm.
No
so
kidding.
like I just had this vision and I'm watching the film waiting to see like cyborg Chewbacca.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like I guess they scrapped that. Okay. I was kind of happy.
Yeah.
But
that's really kind of cool, actually. That's better than seeing like a spoiler for the movie.
Yeah.
Huh. That's cool.
Did you want to show that picture that?
Oh yeah. Thank you. So actually, first, why don't you tell people about Patrick, and you can also bring it up on screen, and then I'll transition to a larger screen.
Yeah. Assuming that we're talking about the thing I believe we're talking about, one of the cool things about working for Avalanche and on the Infinity series was that we got a lot of the figures that came out. And I remember, the release days were basically like Christmas morning. We had this huge shopping bag, and they gave us every toy that was coming out at launch, and it was really awesome. But one of the things we got as Avalanche employees that was really cool, and it's probably one of the neatest part of my Infinity collection, is we got a variant of Darth Vader, and it's a very subtle variant. I remember they sent out the email that said, we're going to be distributing special employee-only variant Darth Vaders at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and everyone's flipping out because they're like, oh my gosh, what's this going to be? And if you look at the photo, everyone got them. They were staring at it. Everyone was staring at it for minutes, like, what's the difference? And what the difference is that the standard Vader that you get at the store, or kind of was at retail, had a glossy helmet. And that was definitely something that I guess Lucas wanted. Like that is core to the character of Vader, is that glossy helmet. He's got to have that shine, that sleek to it. And not a lot of Infinity figures. In fact, with the exception of maybe like Falcon's wings or some of the translucent kind of plastic, it's pretty much that same kind of matte finish vinyl. And so I guess a few Vaders were printed with a matte helmet, and I guess very few Vaders were made. And Lucas was like, "No, we want to stay true to the character," and that's one of the things we noticed too about it. It could be a headache at times, but I had to eventually, like, looking back, totally respect the fact that the people who look after the Lucas properties, the people who are the guardians, like the Marvel properties, they can be sticklers, but they really care about those characters. And it is a fascinating process working for the approval of some of those things. But it's ultimately because you get consistency.
Yeah.
Anyway, we ended up, they gave those Matt Vaders to the Avalanche employees. And so that was kind of something special for us to have. And that was, speaking to the people in charge of the figures, like Bunker and a lot of those guys, those could have easily been sort of just sent to the incinerator. No one would have known, whatever. It was super cool that they took the opportunity and the effort to kind of save those, and make something special.
Evil Lost in the chat is asking, did they come packaged or were they loose?
Yeah, they were packaged, but I will say the only reason I opened mine is because my package was really badly damaged. And it was basically half open to begin with. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just taking it out. It was kind of like take me out of my misery kind of thing. Yeah. So it kind of went against my collector's instinct. Like, I knew should be in the box, but I took it out.
That's okay. We'll forgive you. Yeah. No, it's cool, especially because I did bring it up when you were talking on. I brought up when you were talking about on screen, and you can definitely see how. Sorry, I got tweeted at. I'll bring it up here in a moment. But you could see the difference of the matte and the shiny so clear from that. So, someone who's watching us live, Parker in the chat is saying that he's playing your Gravity Falls box right now. And you won't be able to see it, but he said he so wishes this was in the game, and it's a big rowboat, which I don't think I've ever seen. So you'll see it on Twitch delay in a moment. Just brought that up. So going back to that toy box.
Yeah, the rowboats I remember. Yeah, rowboats, shrubs. There's even the ones that kind of made it like the lumberjack statue. And the big lake monster whose name I'm forgetting. The scale of those is way off compared to what they are in the normal toy box. So
interesting. Cool. Well, I don't want to cut us off here. Pirate, do you have anything else? Patrick, is there anything else that you also want to mention?
Patrick was the one in charge of the townsperson. We all got that.
That was the most important news item of tonight.
I'm sleeping tonight with that news.
I didn't know if you were going to go, oh, and here was the concept art.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. It wasn't in the show notes. I was about to cry. I was like,
if you want me to draw up a quick sketch of what it could look like, I'll tweet that to the DITV group in the next few days. It'll be majestic.
Too funny.
But yeah, I guess just kind of personally, I know the show sort of. I know you guys. You've planned sort of your final show, correct?
Yep.
You mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
And sort of as we kind of look towards the end of the end here. Just a big thank you to you, Will, and you, Steve, and all the members of this show who aren't on tonight. I know as someone who was just coming into this community, this was a huge welcoming point. I have been active in a lot of games in the past, never, even up to before employment was ever a thing with Disney, I'd never been as engaged in the community as I had with Infinity. And that's because really a lot of what you guys did with the Infinity Fan Forum, Steve, with DITV, I don't I don't exaggerate when I say I probably would not have gone on this adventure if it weren't for the path that you guys laid down. So I'm not going to get too emotional, but I owe you guys a huge debt of gratitude, and really appreciate everything you guys have done the last 3 years. And yeah, just thanks for having me on to hang out with you guys tonight.
You're trying to make us tear up, aren't you? I know that's your goal.
I've been trying.
No, man, that means the world to me. It really does. Yeah, man, it's the show is it's created lifelong friendships, and you and the other guys are absolutely considered as part of that group. And thank you for all the hard work that you all do or did on the game. Not only your actual like jobs and the work you put in and day out, but always being accessible. I remember when kind of each version of the game would come out, people were becoming familiar with all the new stuff in the toy boxes, and you were just a tweet away from anyone who asked, and that was super admirable. I mean, it was your day job. A lot of people leave work at the office when they go home, but you stayed engaged with the community the entire time, and it's been awesome, and you've been a great representative for all of us out here too. So
thank you, and speaking to the community as a whole, and whoever's watching and it's been a part of this community, you guys have made it an absolute pleasure. I again have never been a part of a community quite like this. Probably never will, but it was just an absolute blast. It was just a lot of special people coming together to make something infinitely more special. And so a big thanks to the builders out there, the contributors, the people, even the people who weren't builders but would play and actively be involved in the community. Just it made all the difference. And as we're I'm out here in Utah trying to figure out my next step. A lot of people have asked, would you do it again if you had the chance? And thinking back on all the amazing people I've met, all the people that make up this community, without a doubt, doing a heartbeat. So
that's awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
Kind of touching on that, Boondog Man in the chat is asking, what's Patrick's next big adventures? What are your plans moving forward?
Working on that right now. A lot of possibilities. Maybe not an infinite amount of possibilities, but working on a lot of different things, a lot of different ways it could go. Just trying to be proactive. Once I kind of land on something, I'll definitely let the people know. In the meantime, I'm kind of taking care of my 3-month-old baby Echo, and that's a handful. Most likely, my next adventure is either going to be getting hit by a car playing Pokemon Go, or getting arrested for trespassing in said game. But it'll be worth it.
Awesome, man. Well, glad to hear it was all worth it. For anyone curious to find out, and stay in touch with Papa Echo, check out this is your portfolio site. It's papaecho.net. I have it up here on screen, and it has some of your work. It has about you and a contact screen there. So if anyone wants to reach out, there you go. You can find your stuff there, and any prospective employers should definitely check it out as well. Pirate, do you have any kind of final thoughts you want to leave people with?
I don't give final thoughts because I don't think anything's finalized. You know what? We're always going to be able to find Will and Patrick and me on the internet. We're social butterflies now. We're out there. So, I'm not going to say goodbye.
Good.
I'm just going to say we're going to keep continuing this ride as long as we can. and we'll find other ways to communicate with each other and take this infinity community infinitely further, and we'll have a good time with it. So just stay tuned, and we'll figure something out.
Perfect. Very well said. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us tonight. This was another great show, and I've said before, but I think these conversations are real cathartic. We're kind of getting to that point where, it's still obviously sad, infinitely more so for people like you directly affected, Patrick. But being able to kind of just talk about it and just kind of process it together, I think it's a real positive thing for the community. So thanks both for coming on tonight's show. It's been a blast. It's been a walk down memory lane, and like old friends getting together.
Good times.
Absolutely.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining in chat. It was a lot of great conversation. People were there cheering you on, giving you good thoughts there, Patrick, and asking good questions. So thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate you joining this week's episode of the Inside Infinity podcast. And until next time, we hope your week is filled with infinite possibilities. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Inside Infinity podcast. If you like what we do, please support us. Look for us on the social medias. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/DizzyInfinityTV. Check out our parent network, Res.tv.